This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
This podcast is sponsored by Google. Hey folks, I'm Amar, product and design lead at Google DeepMind. Have you ever wanted to build an app for yourself, your friends, or finally launch that side project you've been dreaming about? Now you can bring any idea to life, no coding background required, with Gemini 3 in Google AI Studio. It's called Vibe Coding, and we're making it dead simple. Just describe your app, and Gemini will wire up the right models for you so you can focus on your creative vision. Head to ai.studio/build to create your first app.
This might be one of the most robustly flexible and capable agentic features on any front-end large language model that so few people have actually used. I'm talking about Claude Agent Skills. Claude Agent what? Yeah, I see so few people talking about Claude Skills, which is pretty shocking considering how good Claude's models are, especially when it comes to coding and agentic behavior. And all you got to do is write a little bit of Markdown. And I think that's exactly where people get lost. Those scary buzzwords, agentic models, coding, Markdown. Well, don't worry. We're going to make it dead simple on today's episode of Everyday AI and give you a walkthrough on Claude Skills and do a very simple for beginners guide on how they work, how to build them, and how I think you should use them. All right, I'm excited for today's episode. Hope you are too. Welcome to Everyday AI. What's going on, y'all? My name's Jordan Wilson, and well, this thing's for you. It is your daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter helping everyday business leaders like you and me make sense of those scary AI buzzwords. We demystify it for the average, everyday, non-technical person. So if that's what you're trying to do, learn and actually leverage AI, you've come to the right place. It starts here with the unedited, unscripted live stream podcast. But to take it to the next level, make sure you go sign up for our free daily newsletter at youreverydayai.com. We're going to be recapping today's episode. So if you missed something specific, maybe you're walking your dog or running on a treadmill or running from a dog on a treadmill, I don't know, but we're going to be recapping all of the important takeaways in today's newsletter. All right. And if you want the AI news, yeah, we cover that every day in the newsletter as well. Also, Claude Skills, extremely impressive. But I think one of the downsides, and I think I run into this all the time with different powerful features in large language models, is it's almost like there's too many capabilities. Like, where do I start? Or maybe, how do I do this, right? Even though this is a walkthrough and tutorial for beginners, you might need just a little extra help. So that's why, I'm going to tell you this right now. At the end of the show, I'm going to tell you, we put together a skill library. This is what I do every day. I talk to, business leaders, the people who make these models, and I spend all day finding and testing different use cases. So we put together a skill library. So a Claude skill library with 50 of the most, I think, flexible and high leverage skills, kind of skill ideas. And then we also put together a GPT builder, a skill builder inside of ChatGPT. We have a Gemini version as well. So even if you don't know how to turn a skill, into the right format using Markdown, we have it there for you. You can just type out your idea and it's going to spit it out exactly. We've taught this thing and trained it on best practices. So stick around and we're going to tell you how to get that at the end. But on today's show, we're going to define agent skills and explain how they turn Claude into a specialized expert. We're going to break down the file structure and compare skills to projects, prompts, and MCPs. Well, at least GPTs and gems as well. And then we're going to walk through the step-by-step workflow live. What could go wrong doing this live? And I'm going to show you and teach you how to both build, test, and deploy your first skill inside of Claude. All right. So FYI, you do have to have a paid Claude plan to do this. So just getting that out of the way right now, but maybe this is even worth it to, if you're on the free plan, just to do this once or twice, just to even see if the paid plan might be worth it for you. All right. So here's an overview. Well, skills, I'm going to break down kind of the differences between GPTs and gems, because I think those are what maybe most people are familiar with. But skills are essentially modular folders of instructions that teach Claude specialized tasks. So they can act as almost custom onboarding materials to make Claude a specialist for you. And this feature unlocks agentic workflows by allowing Claude to execute real code, right? I think when you think of using front-end large language models, and if you're brand new here, what do I mean when I say that, right? So that means you're going into Claude.ai and you're chatting with the Claude chatbot, right? You're not using the backend Claude Anthropic API. You're not using Claude Code, anything like that. We are using this on the front end, on a chatbot, right? And Claude is extremely impressive on the agentic side, right? It's new Claude Opus 4.5, at least when you look at benchmarks, it does best in software development. It does best in coding and development and in agentic flows, right? So it does very, very good in creating skills, but you have to teach them the skills and you have to do it, format it in a certain way. So a little more technical and a little more hands-on than if you're used to using, GPTs or gems, which are customized versions of ChatGPT and Google Gemini, respectively. But I think technically the capabilities are a little bit more because Claude has things like file creation, right? It's able to create and render code. So you can do so many things, especially when you stack these different skills. So here is how Anthropic describes agent skills when they introduced it from their website. So they said Claude can now use skills to improve how it performs specific tasks. Skills are folders that include instructions, scripts, and resources that Claude can load when needed. Claude will only access a skill when it's relevant to the task at hand, and when used, skills make Claude better at specialized tasks like working with Excel or following your organization's brand guidelines. So yeah, they're kind of like GPTs, but way more advanced and just way more capabilities and just more steerable overall. So let's do a little bit closer of a comparison here on Claude Skills versus GPTs or gems. So Claude Skills, a little different. They're automatically invoked by Claude for whatever relevant task that may be coming up in the course of the chat. And they are focused more on governance and efficiency. So what does that mean, automatically invoked? You aren't, like a gem inside Google Gemini. You're going to go in to that gem, right? You manually create it in the interface of Google Gemini, or in ChatGPT, you go into the ChatGPT interface and you create a GPT, right? A customized version of ChatGPT, right? And then when you want to use that GPT or that gem, you navigate to the section inside the user interface and you say, oh, here's my little custom version of, ChatGPT that I did to, rewrite something, or here's my gem that I use to, build, visualize something. Right. So GPTs and gems also use the built-in features of their kind of parent large language model. Skills, different. They're more reusable folders of expertise that are loaded as needed across conversations. So you're not calling them, right? You're not going into a certain area, a certain user interface within Claude to use the skills. You have to enable them. You have to load them in. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then Claude just kind of decides agentically, right? You can call it out by name, which usually helps, right? If you're struggling to get it to use a certain skill, you can still call it out by name, which usually works, but not always, right? And so a couple other differences here. GPTs and gems require manual user selection, and they're more built for specialized tasks. And then GPTs and gems also offer flexibility, broad use cases, and integrated tools like web search, image gen, code generator, etc. So all the features, right, of ChatGPT or Google Gemini, they are available when you are using a GPT or a gem. So a little different. The way I like to think of it is skills are kind of built outside of Claude, and they are not directly used by manually selecting them. there's a lot of crossover, right? But I'm trying to explain how they're different, but there's similarities in a lot of ways, right? Because I think a lot of times, um, as an example, ChatGPT has projects. Google Gemini is rolling out projects, and Claude has had projects. So people thought like, oh, Claude, well, that's kind of like a GPT or a Gem. And it's like, no, they didn't really have anything until they rolled out skills, but a little more technical and a little more setup. So let's go over kind of the technical side of how they work. So Claude essentially scans your available skills, anything that you load in, and Anthropic does have some built-in skills that you can either enable or disable by default. So it goes through and it matches the relevant tools to anything that you're talking about in the Claude conversation. Then, excuse me, still this sore throat getting me, not leaving me alone. So then the metadata loads first to keep Claude fast while accessing specialized expertise, and skills kind of composable, right? They're modular. They stack together. So that's nice because if you have maybe dozens of skills and maybe they can be used in conjunction or in succession, right? That's another huge benefit. To Claude Skills, right? I look back at like plugins out of ChatGPT. And one thing I loved about plugins is you could use 3 of them at any time. And then if you kind of prompted it the right way, ChatGPT could go and use those 3 plugins at the same time and pass information, from plugin A to plugin B. So right now, you can't do that automatically with GPTs or gems, but you can do that in a way with these Claude skills because they are stackable. So where do skills fit in the Claude ecosystem? So technically, you could use Claude projects to do some of these things, right? To automatically trigger any built-in Claude feature. So projects, well, if you haven't used them, think of them like an organizational structure. So you can put all kinds of chats inside of a Claude project. But in there, you can also have files and custom instructions. So in that custom instruction, you can essentially do some of the things that you could do in Claude Skills. However, skills teach Claude how to do things. So it is a little bit different, a system prompt versus teaching a model a skill that it can repeat and use when it needs to. So prompts or special instructions inside Claude projects are more for one-time requests. In skills are for repeatable and persistent procedural knowledge. And then there's MCPs as well. So MCPs connect Claude to data sources, third parties, right? They're kind of like APIs. That's not what skills are. Skills, you are essentially loading in some functionality in a Markdown file and teaching Claude how to do those tasks, right? So let's talk a little bit more about some of the setup. How is a skill set up? How does it work? What is its anatomy? Well, it is simple. Think of it like a computer file, right? You have a computer that has a hard drive, and then there's folders, and then there's files. Similarly, it's kind of how skills work. Skills have directories, and in that directory, there has to be a skill.md file. And the file uses YAML, or yet another Markdown language front matter, to hold the required name and description fields. I'm going to show you what that means here in a little bit. And then folders can also house reference files, executable scripts, and resource templates. And the computer analogy is actually important here because you are going to be building skills on your actual computer, right? So this is not something you're just going to build in the interface. So there are some technical things, all right? And I'm going to go through them a little bit more in depth here. So you need to make sure that you name everything correctly, because if not, you're going to have some problems with your skill functioning. So you need to write descriptions from Claude's perspective, focusing on specific capabilities and clear triggers, and just good prompt engineering 101 anyways, right? Avoid vague phrasing and use specific verbs like extract, create, or merge. Here is your step-by-step workflow. Like I said, we're going to talk about this and then I'm going to show you and do it live. So you need to start by clarifying the specific problem and defining what success looks like. So this is when you are creating your skills file. Then you can use the skill creator skill to interactively generate your folder structure and files. And I actually should have clarified there's two different ways that you can go about building these skills. So you can actually just do it natively in the chat with Claude, which I know some people prefer. For me, not so much. I know this might sound weird. I like making skills in other large language models. And I'm going to show you one of the reasons why and why I actually went about and created a custom GPT. I think it might make sense, especially if you're not a Power Claude user and maybe you use ChatGPT or Gemini a little bit more. But essentially, you can chat with Claude and create this skill within Claude. So you don't even have to use a third party. And when Claude did, when Anthropic did release this skill, there was no way to just save it. You still had to download it as a zip file, upload it. Now, luckily, they've kind of made it a little easier. So you can, number one, you can write these skills by hand. You can, use a different large language model. That's what I like to do. Then do a download, upload process, or you can just talk natively with Claude, kind of what they call a skill builder, right? Which is essentially there's no certain place in Claude. There's no button you click. You just say, "Hey, I want a skill that does this." Use the skill creator and build this for me, right? It's actually funny. I'm pretty sure the skill creator in Claude is actually a just default skill that they've built that helps you create skills. Kind of meta, right? Okay. So, and here's how you need to validate them, because this is where it does get a little tricky and where there's kind of downsides compared to GPTs or gems, which you proactively choose and manually go and, enter into the settings. It's cool that Claude can just know, oh, maybe I should trigger a skill, but sometimes you might not want it to, right? And I've run into this actually a lot more than I thought I would. So what you should do is create a test matrix covering your normal operations of how you might want to use a skill, edge cases, and also out of scope requests. Then you just test it, right? Start using Claude, right? So think of areas where, hey, it should definitely trigger a skill when I say something like this. It shouldn't trigger a skill when I'm doing C, it should when I'm doing AB, but not when I'm doing CD, and test those things repeatedly and see if it triggers the skill or not. And another thing, if you have a lot of related skills, or let's just say you use Claude all the time for one certain type of work, and maybe you have 10 different skills related to that one type of project, you might get a lot of misfiring. So you do have to, in building your skills, whether in the Markdown file or if you're using the skill creator inside Claude, you need to be very specific. That's why I said a couple of minutes ago, you have to use kind of prompt engineering basics. You have to be extremely clear and specific. Using vague language, skills actually might be more frustrating than they are helpful. I think for me, when these first dropped and I was using them the first couple of times, I was getting frustrated because there were sometimes I wanted a skill to enable and it wasn't. And then sometimes, vice versa, it was happening. Or, I do have a lot of similar skills in some of my accounts that are related. So, sometimes, I wanted, I don't know, AI news researcher A, and it was kicking off AI news researcher B. So you do have to really go through and test these tasks that seem related but shouldn't trigger your skill to verify the boundaries, and then refine your descriptions if triggering is inconsistent, or instructions if your outputs vary unexpectedly. So yeah, you might have to go revisit that skills.md, that markdown file, and actually update it. So yeah, if this makes sense, right? So you are creating a Markdown file with all of your instructions, but you're not going to see that, right? The difference is in GPTs or GEMs, you're going to see that, right? And you can go in and easily change it. Not as easy, and it's not quite the same thing working within Claude with these skills. All right, so let's talk about some of the advanced capabilities before we jump into a live demo. So skills can include executable code for tasks where programming is more reliable, and I think that's one of the huge benefits. Also, sub-agents in Claude Code can utilize skills to handle discrete specialized tasks, and developers can use the API to programmatically control custom skill versioning. So yeah, these are maybe things more on the advanced end. Obviously, skills can be used not just on the front end, they can be used on the back end as well in Claude Code on the API side. So some of these are more on the advanced side, but in our demo today, it's for beginners. So we're just going to be working with the front end of Claude. So couple best practices: stick to trusted sources, right? So a lot of people are sharing Claude skills online. I probably wouldn't use those unless you know exactly what they do. The same thing with using, third-party GPTs from the GPT store. If you don't know them, and if you don't trust them, you might not want to use them and hand over your data. You should also never hard code any sensitive information like API keys or passwords directly into a skill.md file. Also, keep your skills focused on single workflows to ensure they compose better together. Again, remember, they're modular, right? Little pieces that can work and fit together. So I think a lot of mistakes that people make when trying to do skills, same thing with GPTs or GEMs or anything, is they just try to do one thing to automate a large project. No, they're modular. Break it down into little chunks. You're going to have a much higher degree of success if you make them small and specific. All right, so before we go live, let's first take a very quick break for me to take a drink and a word from our sponsors.
This podcast is sponsored by Google. Hey folks, I'm Amar, product and design lead at Google DeepMind. Have you ever wanted to build an app for yourself, your friends, or finally launch that side project you've been dreaming about? Now you can bring any idea to life, no coding background required, with Gemini 3 in Google AI Studio. It's called vibe coding, and we're making it dead simple. Just describe your app and Gemini will wire up the right models for you so you can focus on your creative vision. Head to ai.studio/build to create your first app. This podcast is sponsored by Google. Hey folks, I'm Amar, product and design lead at Google DeepMind. Have you ever wanted to build an app for yourself, your friends, or finally launch that side project you've been dreaming about? Now you can bring any idea to life, no coding background required, with Gemini 3 in Google AI Studio. It's called vibe coding, and we're making it dead simple. Just describe your app and Gemini will wire up the right models for you so you can focus on your creative vision. Head to ai.studio/build to create your first app.
All right, so let's get into it and let's look live. This is Putting AI to Work on Wednesdays, our Wednesday segment. We go live, we get hands-on, so let's do it. This one is going to be a little bit different because, like I said, I'm going to show you, hopefully here, running live generative AI demos sometimes doesn't go very well. So if you are listening on the podcast, we always have the video version on our website at youreverydayai.com. Hopefully it all works. Hopefully I don't, bust through my my Claude limit in 2 prompts, but we'll see. But I'm going to be sharing my entire desktop here because, like I said, I'm going to show you very simple way on how you can build these skills across different large language models, which I'm going to tell you why you need to do it here, but also how to save them on your desktop, how to upload them, all that good stuff. So now, live stream audience, if you could, let me know. You should see my whole desktop here. All right, not a lot going on, but I have a Chrome tab here. I have text edit, so I'm on a Mac, so it's just a text file editor, and then I have my my desktop where I'm going to be saving some files. So here is why I love using other large language models to create Claude skills. They know more. They know more about me. I don't use Claude a lot, right? Obviously, I use it every day. Yeah, right. When I say I don't use Claude a lot, I use Claude probably I don't know, 30 minutes to an hour every single day, right? But I use ChatGPT and Gemini for multiple hours a day, and I've used them for much longer. So memory, right? ChatGPT has great memory. So I can just go into ChatGPT and be like, hey, based on everything you know about me, what are 20 skills, Claude skills that I should be using, right? And it can go out and see what Claude skills are and go look at all my different conversations and reference my past chat history. And then I can use a very powerful model like GPT-5.1 Thinking or GPT-5.1 Pro to write some really good instructions. So that's what I did here. So on my screen, I have some instructions, right? I had it write it. I had it write it for me in Markdown. So if you don't know what that is, it doesn't matter. It's just a simple programming, text editing language. That's all it is. So if you ask ChatGPT to give it to you in Markdown, pretty simple. All you got to do is click copy code, and that's what I've done. So big advantage. You can see, yeah, you can use the Claude Skill Creator, but I like using, for me anyways, I like using ChatGPT or Google because that's where I do the overwhelming majority of my work. All right, so now I'm going into text edit. Okay, so all I'm going to do is paste that in. Next, this one, more of a little Mac hack here. All right, and these instructions, they're simple, right? They're plain English, right? So you can write these yourself. But like I said, I like using other large language models, and I'm doing a super simple one just to demo. This is a podcast show notes formatter. There's a description in there. There's a purpose, how to use the skill, behavior, example, etc. I'm not going to read through it. It's simple, right? It's like a custom instruction that you would give a project or a GPT or a gem. It's just in Markdown. All right, so now I'm going to remove the formatting. All right, I just do this as an extra step because sometimes, especially when working with Markdown, if the formatting gets changed, something might not work. So all I'm doing is I just removed the formatting. There's just you can go into the menu and do that. I just do a keyboard shortcut. Now I'm going to save this file. So here is where you just have to make sure to do this part correctly. I need to save this as a skill.md file, right? So depending on what text editor you're using, you just have to make sure to override the default settings, right? Because in text edit, it's going to save it as a .txt, which will not work. So I'm going to go to save. All right, I'm going to save this on my desktop, and I'm just going to, actually, I'm going to put it in a folder, all right? Because this folder, again, we need a structure here. So I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm just going to call this podcast show note skill. Okay. That part's important. And then in that folder, I am saving this file. All right. And all it is skill.md. All right. So you are putting your own extension on there, skill.md. All right. There we go. So now I have my skill.md file. I'm going to go ahead and save and close this. So now, kind of small here, but I have this folder on my desktop. It is podcast show note skill. When I click it, it's just a skill.md file. Very simple here. All I'm going to do, excuse me, I'm going to right click this and click compress. All that does is it creates a zip file, and this is how I upload it into Claude. So again, let me just quickly recap what we did. We went into ChatGPT. I gave it some information before on, what Claude skills are, best practices to write them. I used ChatGPT's memory to say, hey, suggest me some skills that I could use from Claude, had it write it for me in Markdown. I copied it from ChatGPT. I pasted it into a text edit file. I removed the formatting. Then I saved that as a skill.md in a folder that is a description. That description is important because that description of the folder is ultimately what the skill will be called. Then I just right-clicked it, compressed it. That's how you do it on the Mac to create a .zip file. Now from here, pretty straightforward. I'm going to go into Claude and go into settings. All right. And then once you go into settings, you need to go to capabilities. And like I said, you do need to be on a paid plan for this. Scroll down and you need to make sure that you're under the skills section. So you'll see that it does have some default skills. Yeah, like this skill creator is a skill, right? So you can toggle those on or off by default, the ones that Anthropic includes, if you want them or not. So you have this section here that says upload skill. Now all I'm going to do, it gives you a little place to click. And then I'm going to upload. Let me find it there. There it is. I'm going to upload my podcast show note skill.zip. I'm going to click open. Let's see. Okay, here we go. I already got an error that I forgot. So it says skill name in skill.md can only contain lowercase letters, numbers, and hyphens. All right. So it looks like I need to change the name there. I swear I've done this before without this issue. So I think I have to add dashes between, I think it was the spaces. So I'm just going to go ahead and redo this here live. Love doing this live. All right. So I'm going to recompress it. Let's do it here. There we go. I'm going to re-upload this skill. Oh, fun times, fun times. All right, one important caveat here, struggling with, have to make sure that there's no capital letters in the skill name. So I'm going to go ahead and open this same file here. It suggested that I just use, okay, so I'm going to make sure I don't have any capital letters, and it suggested using hyphens instead. All right. So that's weird. I've uploaded ones with capital letters before in the name. Not an issue. Love, 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 love when live Gen AI demos do this. So now all I did is I went into that folder. I made sure that the skill is not capitalized, and I just used hyphens in the skill name inside the file. All right, so now hopefully this should work well. So I'm recompressing this. All right, now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to refresh my Claude over here. I'm going to upload the skill. Give it a second. There we go. All right. And it worked this time. Yay. All right. So now to use it, what do? Well, you don't have to do anything, but I am going to still, for the sake of a demo, I'm just going to go into Claude and I'm going to say use the podcast show notes formatter skill on this. All right. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the website because this skill is made to format podcast transcripts in a certain way, right? You can obviously make any skill, and I would suggest, obviously make ones that are a little bit more useful because any large language model could do this, but I'm just doing this as a demo of this skill, right? So you'll see I didn't have to click anything. It just knows on its own, and I'll kind of walk our podcast-only audience through this. So it says, thought process. The user wants to use the podcast show notes formatter skill on the provided podcast transcript. Let me first check what the skill does by viewing it, right? So you'll see kind of this agentic nature and why, especially if you have multiple skills, right? Let's say you take a repetitive task that you do over and over. Right. Going back to my plugin analogy from earlier, you could have 3 different plugins. Well, you could have 5 different skills, all related to one project, and it can pass information on to each one. It can run code in, step 1 through 5. It can create files, right? That's another thing that Claude is actually great at. In this case, it went through, did a really good job, and actually just did the skill that I trained it to in the file, right? So if I open up my file that I made, my skill markdown file, right? All it's supposed to do, I told it what to do. It needs to take the raw show notes. It needs to give me bullet points. It needs to give me an episode title, short summary, key segments with bullets, right? And it's all right there, right? So the transcript. I pasted in there. It went through, followed my skill that I trained it on to a T, gave me exactly what I needed. All right, great. So let me quickly show another way that we can do this. Let's go ahead. I started this before the show started because it was going to take a while and I didn't want it to, have my screen load for 5 minutes and you guys hear me yap on. So in this, I essentially said, hey, Claude. So again, you can create a skill conversationally. I said, create a skill that scours the web and finds the latest AI news from the past 24 hours. Let's call it the AI searcher skill. Always first take a look at the date, as bringing in news from more than 24 hours ago means the skill has failed. I care about the latest AI news, LLM updates, Gen AI studies of breakthroughs and big companies, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm saying the skill should search the web and find the 5 biggest AI stories and give me 5 bullet points for each. Then it should use Claude artifacts. So again, kind of stacking skills. And I haven't actually tried this one live, so we're going to see how it goes. And give me 5 bullet points. Then it should use Claude artifacts to create a beautifully designed AI-inspired news site with interactive elements that visually tell the story of the top 5 AI news stories of that day. Please help me make this skill. All right. So again, little meta here. It's using the creator skill to help me create a skill that then I'm going to use. So if I kind of scroll through what happened here, I did take like 3 to 5 minutes when I did this right before we kicked off this show. You can go here and read, but it's creating the actual file here. And it's going through, it's making some iterations. I'm only using Sonnet 4.5 because I know I couldn't do any demos with Opus 4.5, even on a paid plan. The limits are so poor. So this obviously could have been done much better with Opus if you do have a max or an enterprise plan. So there we go. It went through and Claude actually created this skill for me. And on the right side of my screen, I actually have a preview of the Markdown file, and I can go in if I wanted to and make some iterations on this. The cool thing is, and this was not available when Claude actually launched this. And I think, again, Anthropic, not always the best, if I'm being honest, at rolling out new features, because usually they just roll them out to enterprise and then like 3 months or, their max plan. And then like 3 months later, they roll it out to everyone else. That was the case with Skills. So they just launched Skills to normal paid users on the $20 a month plan, which is what I'm on, like 3 weeks ago. And there's like a tweet and that's it. So it's like now I'm sure Claude has millions of people on their base paid plan. And I'm sure that very few of them, unless you're like me and poke around large language models every single day, even know that this is there. Anyways, a new update that's here is now you have the ability to save this skill, right? You still used to have to download it, do the whole zip file upload, but now you can just click and save the skill. So there is obviously an advantage to using Claude's built-in skill creator. But like I showed you, for me, I love pulling in all of my data, my tendencies, my preferences, my memory from other large language models and having them build skills for me based on what I do all day. Right. So I'm going to click save skill here. Should just take just a second. And then it says skill uploaded view. Cool. So now I can, all right, there we go. And there it is. There is my AI searcher. So let's go ahead into a new chat window. And I'm just going to say, using the AI searcher skill, find me the top 5 AI news stories. So I haven't done this one yet. We're going to do this live as we kind of wrap up the show here. So let me just go ahead and say this as we let Claude maybe do its thing. Hopefully this works well, but if not, don't worry about it. Claude skills are extremely powerful, right? This walkthrough was meant for beginners. This is to get you started. I wanted to show you live because, yeah, even though I've done this dozens of times, there's still little hiccups, right? I forgot, you can't have capital letters in the skill.md file if you're building it on your own, right? So I had to fumble around a little bit. But I wanted to show you the basics. But you have to think of all of the capabilities of Claude, which are a lot different, I think, than Gemini, than ChatGPT, than Microsoft Copilot. And you need to think of what are those manual knowledge work tasks that you do over and over, and then pairing them up with Claude's capabilities and then breaking them into multiple sets of skills. Again, don't try to automate that 3-hour project in one skill set, right? Chat with Claude, chat with ChatGPT, chat with Gemini on how you can break that up. And you really have to understand Claude's capabilities because, like I said, great at running code, great at software development, pretty good at creative writing and reasoning and logic, but great just on the agentic side. So we'll see here. All right, it looks like it's going through, and it's at least starting to do things correctly. So it gave me the top 5 AI news stories. Let's see if it did a good job because we covered these yesterday. So Trump approves the NVIDIA chips to China. That was one of our top news stories. Accenture and Anthropic launch a $200 million partnership. That wasn't a top 5 story, but it made our newsletter yesterday. Anthropic launches Claude Code in Slack. That was actually a little more than 24 hours, but a lot of news organizations were covering it, 24 hours ago. So heavy on the Anthropic side, right? And then it says Trump plans executive order blocking state AI regulations. We covered that 2 days ago. So, okay. And then Meta's AI strategy faces internal confusion. Yeah, that's talking about their new model codenamed Avocado. So did a pretty good job of all those things have been in our newsletter the last day or two. But hey, this is why you can't just, hand all your AI news coverage over to AI, right? Because it did give us some older things, but you'll see what it did for a live stream audience. It went through and it, like I asked it to, because I trained it on this skill, it went and built a kind of interactive dashboard. So I have a nice kind of multicolored. I did ask for some interactivity. There's a little bit, the read more button doesn't do anything, but there's just some simple hover and color change effects. So it did what I asked it to. It created the kind of top 5 news stories, give me some information about those, and then used the artifacts feature to make some nice little interactive AI news site here. So that is a wrap for today's show. But if you're just like, whoa, this thing is like extremely powerful, but I don't know where to get started, we did it all for you. So if you want access, we built this skill library. Like I said, this is what I do all the time, right? I know all the most important use cases and have spent a lot of time aligning them with the capabilities of different large language models like Claude. So we built this skill library specifically. These are ideas, number one, right? These aren't like copy and paste. These are skills, but you could bring these into Claude's skill creator, or you can bring them into the skill builder GPT that we built. So if you want access to this database, this skill library database, and it is a database, it is filterable, sortable by different categories. So, maybe you're in HR, you're in sales, you're in marketing, etc. We have different skill library ideas that you can sort by category, and you can also sort by level: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So if you want access to that skill library and the skill builder GPT or the skill builder gem, all you got to do is just repost this show on LinkedIn. So and this is something I'm trying to do more of because everyone's like, oh, Jordan, how can I help? And I'm like, go tell someone about this, right? So if this podcast is helpful, I spent a ton of time, right? Y'all, I'm sick, right? I'm struggling to talk, right? If you really want to help us and support the show, go repost this show and I'll send you these things. But I'd really just appreciate it if you just tell people, right? This AI stuff, it's so hard to keep up with. And as we prepare for 2026, I think having an unbiased source that you can trust that can break things down in a simple way in 20 or 42 minutes is extremely important. That's what we try to do. And we cannot keep this thing going without your support. So please go repost this exact show on LinkedIn, and I will send you those resources. If you are listening on the podcast, we always put those links in the show notes. So make sure to go check it out. So thank you for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. Remember, go to our website, youreverydayai.com. Check out today's daily newsletter. We're going to be recapping today's show and a whole lot more. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
This podcast is sponsored by Google. Hey folks, I'm Amar, product and design lead at Google DeepMind. We just launched a revamped vibe coding experience in AI Studio that lets you mix and match AI capabilities to turn your ideas into reality faster than ever. Just describe your app and Gemini will automatically wire up the right models and APIs for you. And if you need a spark, hit I'm feeling lucky and we'll help you get started. Head to ai.studio/build to create your first app.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.